This week's channel message from the angels is about a dialogue with the earth, understanding how she speaks, what her experience is, and how we can communicate with her. So, welcome back to my channel, you guys. It is great to have you here. And for those of you who are new, my name is Ann Tucker. I am a trance channel. By that, I mean I go into a deep meditative state, and from there, I raise my awareness as high as I can go. I go a little higher, I connect, and then messages and healing come through from the angelic realm. And this past weekend, I was hosting a retreat. I am going to share with you a very small snippet from the retreat. There's one piece of it that I just think is too cool not to share. So I have a piece of it, which specifically for you guys who were there is the conversation we had with Mother Earth. So super cool experience of Mother Earth. And Mother Earth is not what we think she is. so it is kind of a mind blower. It really stretches your perception, right? Our ability to understand different forms of consciousness, right? We always tend to think of everything from our own frame of reference. We think of ourselves as humans. So we always, it's like even, when we're drawing pictures of little kids, we put eyes and smiley faces on everything as if everything is human. And the earth is definitely not human. But very, very amazing. So I'm super excited to share it with you guys. And then to let you know that the October retreat is now open. So if you want to join in, you guys know these sell out super, super fast. So if you want to join in, it's on my website. It's on anntucker.com. If you just go to the events button, you can see it under that. And there's a link to the October retreat at Mosswood Hollow. So that's available. If you guys want to join and be part of this next time, if you feel called, listen into your heart and join us. Because I cannot wait. We just got back and I cannot wait for the next one. And Brandy says, still coming down from that experience. Yeah, I know, me too. It is really, like an amazing, amazing experience. And part of it is the community, the people that come are like, you feel right at home immediately. Like, it's like everybody is so open and is with so many beautiful souls. People are just holding space, and we talked about this at the retreat. We talked about this idea of how do we get to a space of balance in our own energy. And what that space of balance looks like is when we meet another person, we have no fear of being seen, right? And the whole thing was about being seen. And how typically when we have a fear of being seen, we try to manage how people see us. And we either do that by trying to conform to what they expect us to be, or trying to project something we think that we want them to see, right? It's depending on our personality. And so we are very active in that process. We are sort of, we're either constantly reading and adapting and reading, and we're reaching into their energy, trying to become what they expect, or we're constantly moving like projecting a story, projecting and trying to conform their perception to what we want it to be. And they said that when we get to a space of balance in our energy, we become like a still pool of loving acceptance, which I love. I love that. And it is that idea that not only are we in loving acceptance of ourselves, so we no longer feel like we have to control the narrative of who we are, that we just we open ourselves up to be seen because we're not afraid of being seen. And even with that doesn't mean we're perfect, right? With warts and all, that we love ourselves and we recognize, nope, exactly where I am right now is where I'm meant to be. And this is a beautiful journey. And I accept this journey and everything that I've done and been through as perfect. And I love that about myself. And I'm here to be seen. And then holding that same space of loving acceptance for everyone we meet, and just being like a pool of stillness, right? Of loving acceptance when we meet another person, and really being open to see them, right? And this is the space we're trying to get to. This is what we want to hold. And when we can get to that space, then we can move into a space of unity and one with everyone. Right? And so they've been working on us. The angels have been working on us to achieve this from a bunch of different directions. We've had multiple peace bathing sessions where they've been focused on this, right? And they talked about it a lot at the retreat. So it was really beautiful. And the way that they work with us is by bringing us into an experience, right? Helping us to not just to tell us, but to let us feel it. And so that's what happened with this message when they were trying to help us to understand the earth and to bring us into connection with the earth. But they gave us an actual embodied experience of it. And I can't share that with you guys here today because there's a lot involved in creating that. They bring us into a deep state of meditation, and then they bring us into a very special space that they held. And from that space, they were able to bring us into this experience. But I want to share with you an excerpt from it so that you can understand the teachings involved, so that we can all absorb the information, which was really mind-boggling. So, yeah. So, okay. So if you guys are ready, I will go ahead and begin. This is a long one, all right? But I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So I think we can save some time on the back end. And I was hesitant to cut it out. Even though there's parts in here where they're talking people through the experience, I think it's important to keep those in so you understand the experience was part of how they explained what the earth is. So, all right, if you guys are ready, let's do it. And they start out with, allow the self to enter into dialogue with the earth. And understand, I'm bringing you guys here into the middle of a long experience where they were bringing us into a situation where we could experience the earth. Allow the self to enter into dialogue with the earth, to feel her presence now, to sense her merging, her acceptance, her invitation. Yes, allow her allowance to feel where she is connected, where her soul speaks. Feel within her the urge to express, and to sense within you the energy that is your own soul spark, how you emit, a frequency that she can understand. The emergence of a dialogue, inert though she does feel inert, though you express in this timeless dimension of experience where all things north and south facing merge into one plane of feeling and emotion. Allow the self to become aware of the solidity and mass of her proportions, and sense her within the very body, the water that you possess. Some become aware of this communion and let her feel you differently to feel you now. And now you sit, your seat, your soul, your centered self within her, and your awareness brought full in its capacity to experience one another in this tenderness of unions, to allow her to be heard. Stay at the center and bridge the gap of incongruence to find your awareness within her. See her speaking softly, how she does emerge in pleasantness, in a sense of horizons indefinite and ever-turning, ever-changing quagmire of feelings and sensation. How does this being emerge, you are wondering, in the chaos of all things, the calamity of environ that she creates? There is no perception, nothing to perceive, no noun to pronounce that can encompass all this. It is an experience of depth and breadth that is beyond the soul's knowing when embodied. And yet you allow it. And she is her, and you are within her. And your experience and your knowledge confound you. Your sense of what you are as human, your experience of life in dimensions, concrete and palpable, live. It's now how you find her. You play, you try to assemble the experience into some physicality you have known, and you cannot. For she is a being that stretches beyond your reality. She is not limited in her focus. She cannot be constrained within a body, and she is harnessing the power of the many, of the woe-begotten and the betrothed, of they who form their feelings into pronouncements and lead and direct and orchestrate. They and all of them are a part of her. And she does consecrate them gently into their presence and allows them to play their folly and feels within her own body a pronouncement of her nature, that they are one with her as well. But in her experience of life and living, you are but a cell. You are but a presence that is mixed and molded into a broader energy of which she has little awareness. And now, as you are accepting the call to experience her more deeply, your presence takes shape in the environment of her heavenly body. As you feel her, as she is most gently, as she perceives you now in your awareness and feels your gaze upon her, and she does bask in it. For though she feels the presence of the many souls upon which she shares her focus, there is a loneliness to her experience. There is a oneness, a soulful desire to experience someone else, something outside of her own body. And here you are within your essence, your presence, gracing her awareness to shine the light of your perception, to see her as she is, not as a child or a woman, not as physical, for she cannot be embodied as you would make her. She is yet an essence of feeling, a presence, a magistrate with conviction, who governs this environment which you call home. And she is this among many things, for she does not stay does not stay bound to this time and place. She spreads herself across the formation of new dimensions. She exists beyond the time and space of your real-time focus. She exists beyond the self, and you have yet, as you stand with her, as you stay within her presence, to the sense of only one window into her great chorus of experience. And yet she feels your presence. She is aware and she regards you. As you feel through her boundaryless vision, we invite you now to carve out a gaze, an angle, one space of experience. You cannot by nature take in all that is her, but there is one place upon which you may rest your gaze. There is one angle by which you can experience her, and in so doing so, take part in some larger portion of her own expression. And through this knowledge, you will have gained a connection that is made and drawn forward, and she feels herself somewhat heard. Therefore, we draw your gaze now into a template she has made, a space within her soul, herself, where you will find a mirror. Upon this now we show a light, pink in formation. Allow yourself to find this now as you are watching, to see this sparkle, a reflection of something from within it, and to note within. In its presence, there are many scenes that twinkle, that seem to shimmer and move and change all at once in new directions. It is a mirror in its shape and form, but what is found in it has no reflection you have ever known. It is a presence, a placement of her energetic turmoil, of the constant shifting, changing of the very ground you walk upon. What seems uniform to be physical is nothing of the sort. It is a quagmire and conglomeration of the many different organisms, all vying for separation and union all at once. And you walk upon them with the impression that you are supported underneath, when in fact at any moment you could fall through. For they are moving underneath you, many bodies in a union to create the very dirt you think of as physical. Peer into this mirror, into the presentation of her body, and to perceive within it the ever-changing focus and reformation of what you are perceiving. Allow yourself to be guided, to feel within you as you focus and attempt to try to separate into form and shape and recognize a pattern. There can be none within it. There can be no gaze from prior knowledge. There can be no recollection from within your own experience to project upon this experience. It must be taken as it is, formless, boundaryless, ever-present, everlasting, everywhere, all at once. To perceive within this window, you are offered a sense of her and her organism, that she is ever-changing light, concentrated into focus points by the reality of beings who exist within her crust. And all of these compete at once for influence over one another and themselves. And each of these, like darts flying in all directions, land and pull their focus and make a chaos of experience, which she then internalizes as an experience of self. How can you have an understanding of her being and her body is to be this, to be in her presence and to see her through the window you are offered, and to appear and perceive it as is, without understanding, without comprehension, without knowledge, and to simply be and allow her essence. To feel now, as you are offered this perception, draw it closer to the body. Allow the self to feel her more pressing. In this vista, this window, this mirror of reflection, as you peer down into it and recognize its absence of anything you recognize, its darting lights, its chaos inferno, the sense of exuberance in her expression, the quiet and diminishing, giving way to the new expression of what is coming, the constant evolution from internal. The ground, it shakes and is riddled with the intonations of her voice as you are watching, as you are sensing, as you are feeling. And we invite the self now, if you are ready, to see within this arc of her experience, this simple mirror, this gift, a placement of one hand, a finger, if you're daring. Place it down within the scene of this experience to place it now against the mirror, which is not solid, as it penetrates and moves through. Allow the self to feel the essence of her and place the hand in its entirety. Sink within the boundless nature of her. Sense the sparkle, sense the gentle pricking against your skin as it begins to tingle. The separation of everything all at once. The very minerals are lost into the essence and the chaos of her own disintegration and reformation. Allow the self, never fear, you will have your hand again, but allow her to absorb you, for this is her nature. Allow her to take from you the template of your hand as an offering, to release this to her spirit, to experience yourself through her nature, which is digesting. She draws you inward and takes apart the very essence of your fingers and understands them molecularly. She feels within the truth of your experience every bit of knowledge you contain as she reaches into the essence of what forms you from her minerals, from the very foundations of her nature. She understands you, perceives you, feels you, and she is heard. She shares your perception. She feels for a moment that she is touched to her very soul. For you feel her embodied, emboldened. Shattered is the perception of life as focus, as resolving into your awareness, and resolving into your awareness is an understanding of her contemplative nature, that she does digest what is above as a way of comprehending what is life and what is love. She takes these elements of your experience and draws them into her focus and renews them. This is her capacity. It is her very nature to draw them into her very being, back to the beginning, to the elemental pull and focus, the molecular action and integration, the very things that make up your body. This is her understanding. And from these she pulls a greater wisdom than can be comprehended in the simplicity of the human mind. And here we have the offering of one so great in capacity, who feels in her heart a lack of tenderness, a lack of being seen. And here you are, and you're visiting the very crux of humanity. Emboldened by your visitation, she takes what you are from this offering of your hand and feels herself recognized. A wound is being healed, internal. She is alive, yes, and her resources are vast, but she is alone and separated, and this is her experience. She is one with all and everything, and yet she is alone. And you are here, and you are presence, and you are digested, and you are felt and comprehended. She is loving. She is tenderness. She is complexity misunderstood. And you are held within the vista of her knowledge. To feel yourself now, immerse your full body, full and physical, into the heart of her comprehension. Allow the self to be digested, move into the very center of this union, and allow yourself this consecrated journey to move fully into the heart of her comprehension. All of you is merging, and to feel yourself as you move through the streams of her recognition, to feel the very cells of your experience separate from the body and move out into the crust of the earth. Feel as you become one with her, the horizons of your life expand infinitely, and you are no longer tethered to this time and place, for she is one with you and you are her. You may feel through the body the pleasantness of experience that is boundaryless, how you are incorporated into all things, and your understanding stretches beyond this reality, moves wherever it may take you. And this flow of experience is not directed, no, not as you are accustomed. It is not an experience of eyes within a face that point in a direction and carry with it all the power of your knowledge. It is instead being carried in a river of flow that overtakes you and moves you to and through things. And from here, you are graced with the experience of rivers and are drawn down and through the mountains and among the trees. And you may feel the whisper of the grasses that speak to you, and the traces and the ribbons of the birds. And you may feel these as though her nervous system speaks into you, as though the very sacred moments of her deepest self invite you for deeper knowing. Allow the earth to move with you, to see yourself enshrouded in the culmination of her expression. See as she emerges, yes, the globe, it is a circle, and yet it moves within and beyond these boundaries. It moves into the fields of comprehension beyond this earth. See her now as she emerges into times beyond this now, and feel yourself within her house. She does play within the realities and the understandings of many existences, of which you are only one small part. Become aware that she is one to continue, to remain, to exist beyond the life that you have known, to be always at the center of your experience. And as you are drawn now into the fabric of life as she creates it, allow the self to experience the digestion and the culmination of this expression. Feel the constant movement of the soil between her fingers. She should have the sense of things becoming, the sense of moving, the turmoil of chaos, of energy and exchange. And through this exchange comes the knowing and the understanding, the greater knowledge that she possesses. It is through the breaking down and reintegration of all things that she claims conversation. And here you are taking part, wholly in your body, present and physical in this communion, and allowing her to receive your memory, your experience, your existence, and to penetrate herself with what you are. She does from this take in this moment, which is sacred, a sense of what you are and what you are doing, and why this time is sacred for humanity, why this has evolved as it should, where there is such a focus from the universe into this very dimension within which you are placed for the changes that are being made. And she does see this now and comprehend your presence, and she has not understood this previously. She draws into her own nature the comprehension of her own evolution and how you are a part of it. From this perspective, she draws a breath of acceptance and allows you your own understanding and perception of her. All right. I told you guys that was like a big one, right? That was a big one. I know. Yeah, and Brandy is saying one of several huge experiences, blessings from this last retreat. Yeah, it was a doozy, you guys. And this was, like I said, this whole experience that I just shared with you guys, the angels brought us into, they created a container for us to have this experience before it started this encounter, because it took quite a bit of, they brought us into a deep meditative state, and then they created a space where we were open enough to be able to engage in this conversation that we had with the earth. And so I'm sharing their description of that conversation. But yeah, amazing, right? Just amazing. And I wanted to share it because I felt like there was parts of this that I couldn't take out pieces. You had to kind of have the whole thing to really understand what they were saying. I think some of the most interesting parts to me, if we want to kind of break it down and look through it, that if we talk about what happened in the experience, is that they're trying to tell us, okay, the earth is not like a human, and like we tend to personify things, like I was saying in the beginning. We tend to give it eyes and make we think of Mother Earth. We draw pictures of her as a woman. We think of her as a woman, and and certainly feminine energy. But that Earth doesn't have a mouth. Like, it doesn't have language. It doesn't have words. It doesn't think the same way that we do. It literally, the Earth comprehends things, and that's what they say in here, by digestion, which is so fascinating to think of digestion as a conversation. And it makes perfect sense because we understand things by experiencing them, but we take in frequencies in the shape of words. We take in words and we digest those words, and we attach meaning according to our experience and according to how it affects our body, right? And she has a similar experience of digestion, but when we die, she literally digests our bodies. And she pulls meaning and understanding from everything our body has held. So she experiences us, but she experiences us at the end, right? Like when we die, and probably through the process, because we are constantly renewing, like our body is constantly uptaking new minerals and releasing minerals and doing all of that. So there's probably an ongoing dialogue, but there's really this sense that her way of feeling us is through the reincorporation of what we are, which is like, like there's the moment. And Teresa's saying, so Mother Earth is a spirit within herself, a kind of discovering herself more in her ascension. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that is what we're understanding, is that she is a consciousness, 100%, that she's a consciousness, but that by embodying as a planet, so she's a soul, but by embodying as a planet, it's a super different experience than embodying as a human. And that being a planet that they don't have, planets don't have language or conversation the way we do. The planets, her specifically, Earth, converses through digestion. Wow. Wow, right? So in this process, so they bring us down into, after clearing us and getting us into this really deep state and ready, preparing us, they brought us into an experience of her. And they're saying that they talk about who she is. So she's speaking softly. How does she emerge in pleasantness and a sense of horizons, indefinite and ever turning? So that's part of it. They're saying that it's her, the experience of being a planet is vast, right? It's this indefinite, ever turning. And they also describe her as being not locked in one dimension like we are, that she's playing across a bunch of dimensions all at once. So I think it's hard for us to really experience what it is to be a planet. And they said, okay, don't try. They said, we can't. Not while we're embodied as a human. We can't stretch our brain that far. So instead, they gave us one facet, one window to look through. And they said, focus here. This is the way that they said you can meet her here in this one window. And they said it's like a mirror. And Michael's saying, back into her soils we go. Exactly, right? Exactly. And they're saying, okay, I love that. How does this being emerge? So how can we start to begin to understand this? They say there is no perception, nothing to perceive, no noun to pronounce that can encompass all this. So this is really outside of our ability to really wrap our heads around it, which is why we make her a woman, right? We turn her into something we can understand. So the window of understanding that we normally create for ourselves is sort of a feminine body. And they say, it is an experience of depth and breadth that is beyond the soul's knowing when embodied. And yet you allow it, and yet she is her, and you are within her. And you experience, and they say, your experience and your knowledge confounds you. So during this experience, they were trying to express to the people at this retreat who were having this experience, just saying, don't try. Like, recognize that you can't wrap your head around this, and that is okay. And that was sort of like by design, it's going to be that way. And they said your experience of life in dimensions is concrete, right? So we just can't get outside of it when we're in a human body. And they go on to say, you try to assemble the experience into some physicality you have known, and you cannot, for she is a being that stretches beyond your reality. So it's like when we first encompass that energy, our first instinct is to try to understand it, because that's what we do. We're humans. And they say, nope, it's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to, because she stretches beyond our reality. And she is not limited in her focus. She cannot be contained within a body. She is harnessing the power of the many. So this is interesting. So of the woe-begotten and the betrothed. So in other words, like every human experience, they and woe-begotten is like those people who are really suffering, those people who are like about to get married. They're like every experience that's happening right now, she incorporates all of them. So this is, talk about chaos, talk about an incredible multi-dimensional experience, and so big that we can't possibly absorb it. And Amina is saying, and I might try to understand her as a planet. I'm told I'm a planet too. That's Amina is, so by the way, very interesting. Amina has had dreams showing her that she was a planet in a past life. So a human soul can potentially embody as a planet, which is super, super interesting. At least, and maybe Amina wasn't human to begin with, but she's human now. So super interesting, just in terms of understanding like the metaphysics of our experience, right? So anyway, so they're trying to express that her experience is hugely vast because it contains all of these different consciousnesses that are going in different directions all at once. And she says, and she does consecrate them gently into their presence and allows them to play their folly and feel within her own body a pronouncement of their nature. So they're saying that, yep, all these different people, all these animals, all these everythings are having their individual experience, and she creates this for them, but she allows it, right? It's that she allows them to play their folly. So in other words, it's like we're all having our experiences, our lives that we designed, right? And she pronounces their nature. So in other words, we are all made up of her, and they are one with her as well. But in her experience of life and living, you are but a cell. You are but a presence that is mixed and molded into a broader energy, right? So her awareness of us may not be of us as individuals, but she has an overall sense of like, yeah, humans are a thing. Like they're up there. We are her neurons basically. So she's aware like of us, but maybe not, she's not being like, like, hey, Anne, like that's not really happening. Like it's just too big. And she said, and then they said of a broader energy of which she has little awareness. So she knows kind of us, about us a little bit, about what she digests, but it's not an intimate knowledge, right? Not like our souls are also vast. The souls that make us up are, and probably equally as vast as the earth herself. And so how much contact and connection has she had with our higher selves? Probably not that much. So that's why I think what they're saying here is of which she has little awareness. So she's aware of an aspect of us, which is the part that physicalizes the physical body, embodiment of us, and the role that we play here on the planet. So they say, and now as you are accepting the call to experience her more deeply, your presence takes shape in the environment of her heavenly body. So this is as they're in the process of this experience, they're bringing us down into this connection with her. And you're saying, Teresa's saying, is she heals too just by touching her? Is that her digesting wrongness? So, such a good question. Because she does digest all of our emotions. And I think those are like food for the planet. Like, I think it's all like emotions are part of a way in which we relate to her, in which she understands us. And she does process our emotions, and she feels. That is something that we are constantly emitting that she does digest. So she doesn't have language, but she does feel emotion. And so that is some way in which we commune with her. But then you have to think about the collective, and what is the emotion of the collective, because we are all individuals, but we are all part of this human consciousness, and that kind of overtakes, I think. So when we are expressing individually, I think that's why it's so powerful when we do come together as groups, because it is a more powerful experience of emotion. It amplifies, right? It amplifies, and then that then impacts the collective, and she's more likely to feel that. Yeah. All right. And then they bring us into this deeper connection of her, and they say, and here you are within your presence, gracing her awareness to shine your light, the light of your perception. And so they've said often that our perception is our creation. We create through perception. We direct the power of creation through what we look at, right? Wherever we direct our gaze, our awareness is our creative tool. So, and that is literally our perception is the divine moving through us. So here we shine the light of our perception, which is our divine light through onto her, and to see her as she is, not as a child or a woman, not as physical, for she cannot be embodied as you would make her. She is yet an essence of feeling. So there we go. She understands emotion, a presence, they said this twice, a magistrate with conviction. So interesting. A magistrate with conviction who governs this environment which you call home. And what that says to me is that she has choice, right? She is the one that's choosing, that's making decisions, so she is one, like in charge of this place. It's hers, right? This is her place. With conviction, right? The conviction, she gets to convict. The conviction is to decide, right? So interesting, who governs this environment which you call home. So she is in charge of the earth, really what they're saying here. Super interesting. And she is this among many things, for she does not stay bound to this time and place. So this is when they get to her multidimensionality. So they say she spreads herself across the formation of new dimensions. She exists beyond the time and space of your real-time focus. So imagine, like, we always talk about how every decision we make opens up a new timeline, right? And that if you had turned this way instead of that way, it's like that old movie with Gwyneth Paltrow, the elevator or the doors on a subway or whatever. I can't remember what they called it, but in any case, it's like this idea that every time you make a choice, you split off and create a new experience. Well, in any of those experiences, she is going to be there. She's experiencing everything, right? She's in all of them. So, and she's the same in all of them. That's the part that's really crazy. All right. So then they go on to say, where is it? So she exists beyond the self, and you have yet, as you stand with her, as you stay within her presence, the sense of only one window into her great course of experience. And yet she feels your presence. She is aware and she regards you. So this is what's unique in this experience they were giving us, is that it was a true interaction on a one-to-one level with the earth, which was as crazy and cool as it sounds. As you feel through her boundaryless vision, we invite you now to carve out a gaze, an angle, one space of experience. So it's the idea is like, imagine that the earth is like a diamond with all these different facets. Each one is these many, many, many different iterations of the earth. And they said, okay, great. Don't try to take in it all. Just look in one angle. So they kind of gave us this tool to use, which was a mirror, to look through a mirror, to see her through this one, window that we could then interact with this. And it would be real. It might not be everything, but it would be as much as, while we're embodied, as much as we can really oh, thank you, Mike. Sliding Doors was the name of that movie. Right, exactly. But where we can, where we can try to understand her as best we can and relate to her from a human perspective. They said, you cannot take, by nature, take in all that is her, but there is one place upon which you may rest your gaze. There is one angle by which you can experience her, and in so doing, take part in some larger portion of her own expression. So this is what the goal was. And through this knowledge, you will have gained a connection. A connection is made and drawn forward, and she feels herself somewhat heard. So they're saying it's not just for us, it's for her as well, that she was connecting to us. So anyways, they brought us into this experience, and then they said, okay, great. You see the mirror. And now they said, if you really want to have a conversation with her, she needs to digest you, which is like, oh, okay, really? So that's what they did. They said, great, come into this presence, understand the mirror. And then they said, looking in the mirror, its shape, its form, but what is found in it has no reflection you have ever known. So when you're looking at the mirror, it is not a mirror like we're accustomed to seeing. They said it is a presence, a placement of her energetic turmoil, of the constant shifting, changing of the very ground you walk upon. So what seems uniform to be physical is nothing of the sort. So if you're looking into the mirror, like what we would see was this just like constant, crazy chaos, kaleidoscope of constant change is what we would see, what we would experience looking into this mirror, to understand that this is her, right? It is a quagmire and conglomeration of many different organisms all vying for separation and union all at once. So this is so interesting. So think about that. When you think about like fractals, or that idea of a kaleidoscope, and the idea that the earth is in a constant process of evolution, that like something dies and is then digested, like the microorganisms digest the body, and it's the constant, everything is constantly becoming something else. I think the bodies or the cells in our body turn over, like we get a whole brand new body within some period of time. I don't know if it was 2 months or whatever that is, but there is actually a process of constant digestion of what we were and the reformation of our bodies. And if you think about what we are, I was watching this movie last night called Save Our Soil or something like that. And one of the amazing factoids they dropped in this, it was a documentary, was that I think it was some huge percentage of our physical bodies is bacteria and microorganisms. Like it was like 80%, like we are 80% bacteria or something like that. It was a mind blower. And so here, if you think about that it is a quagmire and conglomeration of many different organisms all vying for separation and union all at once. So this gets to that idea of creation and polarity, which we've been talking about as a theme a whole lot lately. We've been talking about how the human body is a polarized structure, that we have, positive on our above and negative below. And it is through this idea of polarity that we create, that polarity creates motion on the earth plane. And so everything so what is it? As below, so above, or as above, so below, that for those microorganisms, that they are also in polarity, because they are constantly struggling, kind of vying for separation and union all at once. So it is this constant push and pull action that's happening at every level of our physical experience, this is deep. This is so deep and cool, right? I think it's amazing to understand. and to, yeah, to really look into like, what is this physical stuff that we're made of? And so Teresa is saying, so like when we ground ourselves, we are relating with her one-on-one. I think when we ground ourselves, and it's important when you ground, you want to go all the way to the very, very center of the earth when you ground. And I think as we do that, like I think we are returning to sort of that connection to with all of the stuff that we are made of. And it's really about this idea of that we carry a charge. When we ground, we it's like because we are polarized and we have the negative charge at our feet, if we ground, then we can go up, and our positive charge can go all the way up and connect to the heavens, right? So that is our grounding. And then of course we can, as negative, if we start clearing stuff, that stuff can be drained down through that negative charge. But it isn't, we are always connected. Like we are her, we are in her, in the same way that it's like, think about a cell within the body, and you may not be aware of the cell. Like you can't talk to your cell. You have a little tiny cell in there. It's like, hey, like grounding in your body. I'm in here. And you're like, yeah, I got a lot of cells, but you don't know them by name. You don't know them individually, usually, right? Unless they misbehave, then you might know that cell. But I think it's like that. Like she knows, like there's stuff like she, you know, we know we have a liver. She knows she has humans, but it's not the same. But we're grounding into her. We belong to her. We're of her. So yes, there is that coming home. There is that love, right? That in turn, the love of the earth. And it's there for everything that's part of her. So we are absorbing that and drawing that up into ourselves. So it's a connection, but not in the way that I think we usually think about it. And I think if it feels better to think of her as a woman or as a being or as a child or however it feels good to you, to feel that love, to personify that love, which is real, the love is real, then make her whatever you want her to be. Because what matters is how you get there. What matters is like getting there. It doesn't matter how, right? What matters is that you get to the love and that you feel what's real, which is the love that is her, which is a very specific kind of really lovely. It's this sort of, I see it as this like pink, frothy, wonderful stuff that is earth love. And that you draw that up into your body. And that's amazing. So I think it's incredible to understand what she's really made of and how this communication with her works. But I think it's also, at the end of the day, use what works for you to feel the love, because that's what we want, and to ground into her and to make that connection. Yeah. And you're saying makes perfect sense. Awesome. And Mike's saying 60 trillion viruses in our body, 40 trillion bacteria. That's mind-boggling. Did you just Google that? Yeah, that is shocking, isn't it? Like, wow. And like, it literally was something like 80% of us is, and then they were saying when we eat, say for example, you eat a big bite of kale, that we don't actually eat the kale, that our bacteria and stuff like that is what eats, like we chew it up, and then it goes down into the body, and then the bacteria eats it. So we're feeding them. And then their cast-offs is what we actually digest. Yeah, so this could just keep going for miles, you guys. And she's just saying, it still brings me back to Horton Hears a Who. I don't remember the theme of that, but I like Dr. Seuss, amazing, but I don't remember the story. I have to go back and look at it. And you're saying, to me, is Sophia, she is Sophia Mother, and that's good enough for me. I love that. And I think that's important. Like, it's important to whatever you can use to relate to her is helpful. But I think it's really also super interesting to understand her perspective and how she feels us and sees us. All right. So they tell us then to look into this mirror in this experience that we had. They had us look into the mirror, and they said that we can't project on this, that we can't give it a pattern, a shape, that there's no prior knowledge we can use to understand it, that it just is, right? There can be no reflection from within your own experience to project upon this experience. There's just nothing we can do to understand it. They say it must be taken as it is, formless, boundaryless, ever present, everlasting, everywhere, all at once. So it is that idea of just to allow and to not try to make sense of it. And that's the big thing, to try to keep the mind out of the experience, to just be in her presence. Because every time we try to form things to our knowledge, we are binding them to the past. We're binding them to what we have experienced before, and we're not opening up to the fullness of that experience. So we're limiting it, we're putting it inside a box. And this is one that's very hard to put inside a box. So Then they go on to say, to perceive within this window that you are offered a sense of her and her organism. And here they describe her. I love this. They say, she is ever-changing light concentrated into concentrated into focus points by the reality of beings who exist within her crust. Whoa. Okay, let's read that one again. I love this. I highlighted this on my paper. She is ever-changing light concentrated into focus points by the reality of beings who exist within her crust. So this explains the reality of the co-created reality that we are living in. So like the trees, the grass, the everything, that these are all co-created by all the beings that live here. And she's ever changing light, right? So this concentration, this idea, this shared experience that we have is, so if you boil it down, she is holding light. She is energy. She is love, right? She is the divine. And just like we all are, she is the divine. So she is this, but hers is ever changing because of the fact that she is made up of all of these other consciousnesses, which all have their own desires and longings, right? Everyone, all of us, all of the beings that are on this planet are constantly vying for separation and union all at once. So we're constantly moving toward each other and away from each other. We're pulling and we're pushing. And think about what that means. Like, think about electrons like that are vibrating, right? How cells work. Like this all matches what we know about science, about how things work, that we are constantly in this process of moving toward things and away from them at the same time. Vibration, right? Vibration is what we are, a frequency. Moving toward and away at the same time is frequency. Whoa. Right? Okay. She is ever-changing light concentrated into focus points. So each of those focus points is like we were talking about our eyes. When we look at something, we create a focus point of our consciousness. So we are creating. So we are doing that, and everyone around you is doing that all at the same time, right? And we all exist within her crust. And you're saying, for me, she is the entire galaxy we dwell in. It is like that because she makes up our entire world. Yeah, she does. She is everything we experience. Yes, and then they go on to say, and all of these compete at once for influence over one another and themselves. And each of these, like darts flying in all directions, land and pull their focus and make a chaos of experience, which she then internalizes and is experience of self. Can you imagine that? And then here's the thing that's completely wild about that, is that if she's that way, it means that we are that way too. That is exactly what we are made up of. That we are, right, in ever-changing light, concentrated into points of focus by the reality of beings who exist within our crust. So that's crazy. Yeah, super crazy. Okay. All right. They go on to say, how can you have an underlying understanding of her body and her being? It is to be this, to be in her presence and to see her through the window you are offered. So to see her just through the one angle that you've got and not try to stretch to see the rest. Just see it through what you've got and to appear and perceive it as it is without understanding, without comprehension, without knowledge, and to simply be and allow her presence. Right? To feel now as you are offered this perception, draw it closer to the body. So anyway, so this was the idea. And they're saying in this visto, this window, this mirror reflection, as you peer down into it and recognize its absence of anything you recognize, its darting lights, its chaos inferno, the sense of exuberance in her expression, the quiet and diminishing, giving way to the new expression of what is coming. So it's like this constant turning over is in her experience, constant moving through, digesting, right? Digesting. Yeah, the constant evolution from internal. All right, so then they go on and they have us bring us into it, and they tell us that they want to put our fingers or our hand inside of it to allow her to digest us, to have this experience the way she experiences us. And so they have us put our hand inside. And then they say she shares your perception. She feels for a moment that she is touched. And basically it's the feeling of putting your hand inside the mirror. And then from there you start to feel what we were feeling was this idea of like almost like your hand being absorbed and turning into the chaos that we were just noticing, that we were just watching, right? And they say that here, they say, shattered is the perception of life as focus, And resolving into your awareness is an understanding of her contemplative nature, that she's constantly thinking. And by thinking, we mean digesting. That she does digest what is above as a way of comprehending what is life and what is love. She takes these elements of your experience and draws them into her own focus and renews them. This is her capacity, right? So this constant bringing things back inside of herself and then creating again, right? Right, but it is her very nature to draw them into her very being, back to the beginning, to the elemental pull and focus. So she breaks it down to the minerals that we're made of, to the molecules that create that are part of us, right? And the molecular action and integration, the very things that make up your body. This is her understanding, and from these she pulls a greater wisdom than can be comprehended in the simplicity of the human mind. So it's just which makes sense, because she is just vast in her experience, because she's living, not only is she experiencing all of us, but she's experiencing it in multi dimensions at once, right? And then we go on moving in. She says this is a healing experience for her as well, because there's a sense of aloneness being a planet. So there's a sense that she is loving, she is tenderness, she is complexity misunderstood, and you are held within the vista of her knowledge, right? As in this experience. And they go on to say, all of you. So they put the hand in and they say, great, okay, don't fear, you're going to get your hand back. Now you're comfortable. Let's go ahead and go in fully. So then they bring our full bodies into this experience of being digested. And they say, great, okay, become one with her. The horizons of your life expand infinitely. And you are no longer tethered to this time and place, for she is one with you and you are her. So we've been digested at this point. And they feel through the body the pleasantness of experience that is boundaryless. So first they wanted us to tune into the feeling of what it is when you're not embodied, right? Become boundaryless, how you are incorporated into all things. So, and how your understanding stretches beyond this reality, moves wherever it may take you. So there's this sense of how she isn't tied to one reality, how she just moves and flows and is fluid and goes anywhere. And then they say, and the flow of this experience is not directed. No, not as you are accustomed. So by directed, they mean that we in a human body, we have eyes and thoughts, and we move our awareness, our consciousness into different things. So by thought or by eyes, we are directing our consciousness. And they say that's not how this works when we're in this process of being when we've been digested. That's not how it feels. It is not an experience of eyes within a face that points in a direction and carry with it all the power of your own knowledge, right? So thinking or perception. It is instead being carried in a river of flow that overtakes you and moves you to and through things. So it is literally like you're just moving. You're just being carried. There's no sense of intentionality to this, right? You're just moving through it. And from here you are, you are graced with the experience of rivers. So then they brought us into what is it to be earth? And they said, okay, great, come and experience what it is to be a river. And they brought us into and let us feel what it is to be a river. And then they say you're drawn down and through the mountains and among the trees, and you may feel the whisper of the grasses that speak to you and the traces of the ribbons and the birds. And they were really trying to give us the experience of how everything is talking, right? How everything is speaking and experiencing it as movement, as motion, right? Because we were in this disembodied flowing state, that we were motion. So it was this amazing feeling of motion as conversation, which was, and a dance, like a dialogue of dancing, super amazing. And you may feel these as though her nervous system speaks into you, as though the very sacred moments of her deepest self invite you for deeper knowing, right? And you're saying, Mike is saying, the Egyptian goddess who holds the entire Milky Way is her body. Oh, beautiful. Oh, that is super cool. I didn't know that. And Teresa's saying this goes along with your talk about us being everywhere. It really does. I mean, they are on a theme here, aren't they? About the angels telling us how we can expand our awareness. Everything is coming together to make sense. That's exactly right. I totally agree. And they'll tell us from 50 different directions to help us understand. And that's exactly what's going on here. Yeah, super perceptive. Yeah. All right. And then they go on to say, we go through this experience of feeling what it is to be embodied as the earth, this whole experience of being the planet. And then they say, become aware that she is one to continue to remain, to exist beyond the life that you have known, to be always at the center of your experience. In other words, we're always on the earth, but when we have an experience, it's always on her, but we are not always there, right? And then they go, and we're not in every one of her realities. So, and they're saying, and as you're drawn down in the fabric as she creates it, allow the self to experience the digestion and the culmination of this expression. Feel the constant movement of the soil between her fingers. So it's almost like, imagine, like here they allowed us to visualize her as embodied and putting her hand and just letting it, that like letting it pour through her fingers, like to experience it in a tactile way, to have an understanding that comes not from words and not from intention, but just through this physical experience of things moving through her, was that idea. That was why. Move it through the fingers. It's moving through her. You should have the sense of things becoming, the sense of moving, of turmoil, of chaos, of energy and exchange. So that is what it is to feel her experience. Yeah. And through this exchange comes the knowing and the understanding, the greater knowledge that she possesses. It is through the breaking down and reintegration of all things that she claims conversation, right? I love that. It is through the breaking down and reintegration of all things that she claims conversation. So this is how she has a dialogue with her reality, right? It is by this process of constantly moving things through her fingers, constantly experiencing the digestion of everything around her. And through this, she gains knowledge and understanding. And through this exchange comes the knowing and the understanding, the greater knowledge that she possesses. Oh, I think I just read that. No, I didn't. The breaking down and reintegration of all things. No, I did read that. Sorry. Okay. And then this last paragraph, she says, she does from this take in this moment, which is sacred, a sense of what you are and what you are doing and why this time is sacred for humanity. So in this last part, it's like they're trying to say part of this is the connection with our higher selves, which isn't something that always happens, right? She is sifting through her experience of everything that makes up her and letting it move through her fingers and understanding it by digesting it. But there's a part of us that is never digested, which is our higher self, because it never dies. It's never processed. It's never integrated. And there's hints of it through our physical body, right? There's the sense of it through our DNA. But the true awareness that is us is never digested. It never dies. So she doesn't know that. And so through this process, it was like helping her to feel a little bit of who our larger self is, right? And what we're doing here and how we are trying to evolve. And that's what they're saying in this last paragraph, right? Why this has evolved as it should, why there is such a focus from the universe into this very dimension within which you are placed for the changes that are being made. So why are we here now? And what does our higher self say about that? And she does see this now and comprehend your presence, and she has not understood this previously. So she's not yet before understood her higher self. She draws into her own nature a comprehension of her own evolution and how you are a part of it. So she sees the connection between her evolution and our evolution. And from this perspective, she draws a breath of acceptance and allows you your own understanding and perception of her. Yeah, right? I know it's a mind stretcher, you guys. It really is. And yet it makes such perfect sense. Like it matches everything we know in terms of science, right? It matches like our experience, and also it's fitting. Like the whole idea of as above, so below. It is, if we put ourselves in her position and say we are like a cell in her body. We are a neuron, so we're like an important cell. Like we can take that as like our little. I'm really important. I'm a neuron. Oh, but anyways, yeah. So if we think about it like that, then it makes sense that we don't know ourselves, but that they're super important to us. Like we rely on them and we focus on them if they're having trouble. Right? So I don't know. There's only so much that I think we can comprehend about all of this, but I think it helps us to accept what she is by understanding our own relationship to our body and to all the different complexities of our body, and to know that she is a body and we are part of her. Yeah. Yeah. And you're saying, so where is I? There you are. As she moves through the 12 houses and over the 26,000 years of progression. Yeah, mind spells. It says, where's the C? I didn't get that part. Where's the C? But yes. And the cell. Oh, cells. That's right. Mind. We are the cells. Oh yeah, exactly. Sorry, I didn't understand that because of the misspelling there. Cells multiply and die. They do, don't they? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's so true. Okay, you guys, I know this was a biggie. There was a lot in this. So if you want to be part of this in person next time, join me at the October retreat. It is the weekend of October 20th, and it's here in Washington State. And the link is on my website, anntucker.com. If you go under events, you can go and then you'll see October event, October retreat. And this is just one of the many, like so much happened. And a lot of it is very experiential. They guide us into an experience of these things and very, very healing experiences. So if it resonates for you, don't wait, because like I said, these retreats do sell out really, really quickly, and I'd love to have you there. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful weekend. Sending you guys lots of love. Hey there, Snezana, great to see you, and I will see you guys next Friday Live. Bye-bye.